For this video, I will be discussing the topic of good girls versus bad girls and the gray areas in between. So what does it mean to be a good girl? I'd like to start by referring to a Christian women's duo that puts out media that has been described by some to be a collection of blog posts, videos, and instructional books aiming to provide mentorship to young Christian women. These individuals claim that the pursuit of Christian girlhood is more difficult than ever. The church is bent to the will of progressive ideologies. Traditional ideals of femininity are seen as outdated, if not offensive, to the general public. And purity has been traded in for a blanket ethos of sex positivity. Although some have these views, others view these women's media to be straight white nonsense, as these women have said incredibly problematic things, such as one of the women saying, "I've struggled to view lost people with compassion and love. When I hear the words homosexual, prostitute, or even the word Muslim, I cringe inside. In my sinful pride, I wonder how those people could choose that lifestyle or that religion. I think to myself, don't they know how wrong that is? Don't they understand how unfulfilling that is?" Quotes like these seem to be leaving some viewers to speak out on their problematic platform. One article even stated that their videos are a source of extreme right-wing views that wouldn't look too out of place on a neo-Nazi forum. These women see themselves as God-defined girls in a culture-defined world. If we look at some of their video titles, we see a sort of innocence and purity that we often portray with good girls and good women. Even looking at a few of their video titles, we see how they are harmful but still prioritize purity. A few titles are Why Christian Girls Should Be Beautiful but Not Seductive, How Christian Girls Can Do Prom in a Pure and Modest Way, and lastly, Should Christian Girls Date Non-Christian Guys? But although these are more innocent video titles, we also see ones that are very concerning, such as one titled, Is Gender a Personal Choice? And this video goes on to say how males and females were created as two distinct genders. These women aim to spread Christianity and godly advice in a calmly harmless manner to help other women prioritize their purity.
Today, we are going to be talking about why I saved my first kiss for marriage.
We even find that some people find these women entertaining for being overly innocent.
Where I was totally obsessed with this one guy. In fact, I remember seeing him for the first time, and then from that point on, he is all I thought about day and night.
Yeah, that's called being horny.
These examples go to show how it is hard to classify individuals into categories, as putting people into boxes based off how someone seems to be is inadequate. Even so-called good girls can do bad things or be bad people. It isn't until we dig deeper on this good, pure exterior that we see what these good girls are really like. I think this goes to show the difference in how we classify good girls versus bad girls. Some would say these women are good Christian women, while others would claim that their information they spread is harmful.
Is Mr. Struggle. Now, we all have our struggles in life, right? What we're talking about here with Mr. Struggle is a guy who's struggling with big things, and he always says, I'm trying, I'll do better next time. I promise I'm going to overcome this sin. I promise I'm going to get better in this area. But as his track record continues, he never actually overcomes those struggles. So for example, maybe pornography, maybe irresponsible spending, maybe just not getting places on time ever, or really managing the relationships in his life or his responsibilities very well.
Many people caution how problematic it is for these women to title a man who has been struggling mentally as someone you should avoid or view as Mr. Struggle. This seems to be a complete disregard for mental health issues and in a sense blaming someone for things they are struggling with. Now that we discussed how Girl Defined can be viewed as two good girls, what exactly would fit the stereotype of the other side?
I'll show you what it's the opposite of.
Okay.
My girlfriend of 4 years never sucks my dick or makes me come, which I do.
Cheat on her.
No. Your fingers should be at one point. A finger should be in his ass. I'm done. And bye. Good night.
I think many of us have heard about the infamous Call Her Daddy girls, and maybe a few of you are even part of the Call Her Daddy gang. And I have to admit, their merch is kind of good, but regardless of that, these girls, although claim to empower women, many find their podcasts to be very degrading and problematic, claiming that it is the opposite of feminism, they promote gaslighting, and they give young girls toxic relationship advice. These two girls' podcast is dedicated to discussing raunchy and sexually explicit material of their own personal experience or advice on how to do things or how to do said things.
So basically, you pull your tit up and you basically try to lick
and you
it.
I like doing it.
I know.
You try to lick your nipple, and then you can look up at him and just be
You're like,
I'm being a slut.
With this knowledge, we could claim even more heavily that these women are bad girls for the way they are claimed to disregard certain groups of people or even give harmful and toxic advice to women, often hating on men and internalized misogyny.
Well, hello everyone. Here is a more specific video on why I think Call Her Daddy radiates internalized misogyny. Now, for research on this, I did try to listen to the podcast again. Again, could not get through it. So instead I found some articles. But let's get into it. So firstly, Call Her Daddy encourages women to use manipulative power tactics, just like some toxic men use, in order to be truly respected. And well, a woman can be respected without a man's opinion on whether she's powerful and manipulative enough. The podcast routinely encourages women to adopt this mindset because it will make them better off. The conversation about casual sex and casual relationships is not the problem here. That's probably the one good thing about it. The problem is that it reinforces the idea that all men want is casual sex, thus reinforcing the idea that society has told us, women, that we are essentially nothing but a whole, which one of their guests actually literally referred to women as wholes. And Cooper and Franklin agreed with him and endorsed this idea. I'm making a part 2.
We could off the bat call these two girls bad girls because of the advice they engage in giving to other women. But I also believe that the girl-defined women would view the raunchiness and sexually explicit information as degrading and even sinful. Although these girls are looked down upon by some, we see many girls also valuing the advice they share with the world and thinking of it as helpful and even informative. These women share very sexual stories and advice, but they also remind girls that it's okay to be sexual people. It's not shameful, and you should be able to enjoy sex if you want to without fear or judgment. After we have looked into two sets of women that have very different ideals about what is helpful and good advice to share with other women, we can now review what it means to be a good girl and what it means to be a bad girl. I think through these videos and articles I've shown that we can easily classify women as either good or bad, empowering or problematic, or right or wrong. The thing is, how do we know where to draw this line? Where is the gray area in all of this? We could easily claim that girl defines innocence and desire to spread religious advice makes them good Christian girls. But how do we mask the harm they seem to also be bringing into the world by sharing a lot of biases and problematic views that they have?
All of us as girls and women is this, that embracing sensuality is liberating. We're taught as women, just through all of these different outlets, that to be sensual is actually very empowering for us as women. We're fed these messages and we think, yeah, I'm going to embrace my sexual freedom. I'm going to show some more skin. I'm going to be as raunchy as I want. I'm going to live life to the fullest and embrace every bit of sexuality and sensuality that I want. But sadly, this message is a huge lie. That is not God's best for women.
How can we call them good girls if they seem to be shaming women who don't follow their exact guidelines? Now, the same can be said for the Call Her Daddy women. We could easily say that these are bad girls because they engage and talk explicitly about sex, and this is often looked down upon by others. And their ways of empowering women can often be seen as putting down men. But are we meant to disregard them for all the good that they've done with empowering women to not shy away from sexuality and having open, positive conversations about sex?
Call Her Daddy. What is the meaning behind Call Her Daddy? It's definitely a play off of men run the world, no, we run the world. You're daddy, no, I'm daddy. And so I think it was like a reclaiming for women to be like, you can also be the boss, the king, you can drive your own narrative. Like, yeah, call me daddy. I've actually had a lot of moms reach out to me that they're like, my daughter introduced me to Call Her Daddy. She's like, call her grandma. I'm like, no, you're like a boss, stop. But what I do realize, it's just life, right? Like past generations were not as open as now we have become, and it's just a slow progression. I think it's healthy that parents are willing to listen to what their children are interested in, and then it creates a conversation.
After all of this, I question whether there's such a thing as bad girls and good girls. And after some thought and some research, I believe it truly depends on what part of women we shed light on and how we presume women should be. If you take nothing else away from this, I want you to question your own beliefs of what entails a good girl and what entails a bad girl. And I challenge you to fight these stereotypes and burn the boxes that we so easily put ourselves in.